Hi, future Lexa coming to you from vacation when I was about to post this vlog possibly a month late already, and then realized that apparently I didn't film an intro or conclusion or any hint to you what this vlog might have been about. I just started chaotically talking about the books that I was reading, and not even in an organized way. So here we are. Hi. I'm gonna film a little bit of an intro, let you know what's happening, and then I'll also hop back in here for the outro. I apologize if the sound quality in this first clip is not fantastic. Again, I am on vacation, I am filming outside. Someone is making a bunch of noise. And also the wind. We're dealing with the elements. That also means that I don't have the books here to show you that I am going to talk about, but I do want to give you just like a little quick heads up about what this vlog is about, that way you're not too confused, hopefully. So I am gonna be honest with you, I started this vlog not really knowing what it was gonna be, but then I ended up reading books for so long that it turned into my birthday, and then it turned into a birthday vlog, and then that turned into not just my birthday, but also the weekend after my birthday where we were kind of celebrating my birthday, and we went down to Bentonville, which then worked out great because I ended up going to a vintage expo, and there someone had like the surprise date with a book kind of like wrapped up, and then we were able to unwrap that and read that together. So it all came together in the end, but it was a little chaotic at the beginning. So if you are here for just a fun, a little unhinged time, this is the vlog for you. We are reading 3 books, possibly 4. If I forgot one, I'll put that up here as well. Who knows? I do know that I read Half a Soul, and we're gonna talk about that and the incredible letdown that was. I'm still not over that. Okay. I also read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, which was like one of my most anticipated standalone fantasies, and that was a really cool experience because by happenstance my library had the annotated like ebook version, which maybe they all are at this point, I don't know, but either way I loved being able to read the annotations. That was really fun, although I had a mixed experience with that and also with reading the annotations that I talk about. I'm glad that I read that. And then the 3rd book, I'm gonna keep a surprise. Shh, it's a secret date with a book, and you'll find out later in the vlog what that one was, and also how that book went. We went to a museum, we had some fun times, so let's go ahead and get into it. What the actual fuck was this book? Yeah, so I'm realizing that I never actually filmed an initial update for this book, so while I, in this clip, am questioning what the fuck did I just read, you would also be questioning what the fuck did I just read. But also now that I'm thinking about it, I could have sworn that I filmed an update, so maybe I just deleted the footage. I don't know, but either way, the footage to me telling you that I started reading Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater seemingly does not exist. So let me give you a little bit of a summary of what this book is about before I hop into my unpopular opinion of a rant about this, which, if you haven't heard about this before, it is a cozy fantasy, although I would say more romance, historical romance heavy, about a woman who, whenever she is younger, little fairy comes wandering over, and he's like, hey, you owe me your soul. And she's like, hey, no thanks, hard pass. And he's like, but like your mom who died did promise it to me before she died, so like it's mine. And starts to take her soul, and then her badass cousin Vanessa is like, think again, and slashes his leg with a pair of iron scissors, stopping him about halfway through. One of her eyes turns like gray, so she's like a blue and gray or a green and gray, one gray eye. And then another consequence of like what seemingly is that he stole half of her soul and she's missing half of her soul is that she doesn't respond. She just goes about the world differently than most of the people around her. So she doesn't feel things in the way that people expect her to, or as intensely as other people do, and therefore doesn't respond to things in the way that people would expect of her. But her cousin Vanessa kind of like takes her under her wing to protect her, to stand, like kind of help her learn to navigate Regency England and all of these balls and like the social, you know, like social customs that come along with that. I already talked about this more in this next update, but that's like pretty much it. And then she like meets a brooding dude whenever her and Vanessa end up going to London with their aunt, because Vanessa wants to find someone to marry, and that is like a better place to do it than their small town. And then things happen from there. So let's waste no more time. I'm sure my rant was incredibly long going into how I felt about this book. What the actual fuck was this book? I'm flabbergasted, and that is not the feelings at all that I ever would have guessed I would be feeling by the end of this. This is very, and maybe this does a disservice, but I don't think so. I don't think it's this, okay? This is very similar in plot and idea and theme of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, but done so poorly, in my opinion, that I don't understand I literally don't understand why people love this so much. The ramifications of the magic didn't affect this at all, and I can understand with a cozy fantasy that it's not about like a really complicated, intense, big magic system. I was gonna say maybe it's because this is like more romance than fantasy, but I don't think that's true, because I think the romance part of this was so bad. And not even like the fact that I don't like romance, but like the characters and their love story, I thought was just done terribly. And the chemistry, I don't understand. Because I know that a plot like this can be done well, because I loved Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairy so much, I can't understand this book. Okay, let me piece my thoughts together. I finished this last night, and honestly, maybe I should have just DNF'd it, but it wasn't until close to the end that I was like, I'm kind of getting bored with this, because I thought, okay, this has got to start getting better, right? Thank God I had the audiobook, or I definitely would have DNF'd this. But it's almost like this was so meh. I didn't even hate it, because it like barely registered, even as I was reading it, that nothing was happening, and I felt no stakes in this. It's very odd to me that the setup of this with our main character, the idea with having only half of her soul, is that she often doesn't respond to things the way that people would expect her to. She doesn't understand a lot of social customs, and she doesn't feel things seemingly as like deeply or in the same way that a lot of the other people around her do. And honestly, like even in her head, we see that she isn't going to like the very far ends of the spectrum on different feelings. But then for some reason, that doesn't apply to poor people. So it just feels like it's a really cheap way to get us to like most of the characters that we're supposed to like, because they're rich people who just so happen to be so empathetic and understanding to the poor people and the orphans. And it's like, see, this is a good person, you're supposed to love them, because like, yeah, they're rich, but like they understand that the world is unjust and capitalism sucks, and they want to help, you know, the poors. That is the vibe that this is giving me. And like, that was the vibe of like, literally the only reason we were supposed to like the two love interests. And especially the love interest. The main character, I could see some other things, but like our dude, what's his name? I literally don't know either of their names. He's objectively like a dick. Yes, he's traumatized, and yes, he's been through a lot, but it feels like that is like his sordid past and all of the trauma that he's been through is supposed to be a justification for why he's such an ass. And like, because she doesn't respond to things the way you would expect, she also doesn't respond to him being a dick the way that he expects, and like he isn't able to basically intimidate her, and like that's why he's so interested in her at first, and like why he ends up kind of falling for her is like, she's not like other girls. She doesn't respond like other girls. And I am glad, and I appreciate the fact that this book didn't go in the direction of her needing to fix herself or her needing to change, because I was a little worried that that's where we're going. But I figured since so many people liked this book that probably wasn't it. But that was just still kind of like looming in the back of my mind, that I was like, I hope we don't go there. And we didn't. And I will say I'm thankful for that. But we did go in the direction of, inherently, she is not like other girls to this guy, because he can't fucking intimidate and bully her. But really, that's just like a mask for all of his sadness. Like the anger is just a mask for how sad he is. And she recognizes that in him. And that's why they're so good for each other. And I hate that shit. I hate that narrative. No, 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 no. No, no thanks, go to therapy. And then I have two more main qualms about this book. The second one is that the magic comes in to play when we, like the literal first chapter, when this fae dude comes and like tries to take her soul, and then her badass cousin Vanessa, shout out to Vanessa, like fucking slashes his leg with a pair of scissors and halfway foils his plans. But then we get like glimpses into like a little bit of magic, but like not really. Like the softest sprinklings, wisps of slightly doing magic, but all of it kind of just involves a mirror and some enchanted flowers that play no role into the plot at all. They're just a gift. This could just be the fact that I prefer fantasy elements over the romance elements, but if the romance elements were good, like they are in Emily Wilde, I wouldn't mind it at all. And there definitely is more, you're rooted more in a fantastical setting in Emily Wilde than you are in here. Really, you're rooted in Regency London with some whisperings of the fact that there is like potential magic, barely on page. And then we don't see the ramifications of that magic system again until like the last few chapters of this book, like the last little chunk, which then brings me to, I was gonna say my biggest qualm, but honestly I would say all of these are even. This was just like the icing on the cake, I think. The only tension in this entire book is the fact that since only half of her soul got stolen, this fae could and probably plans on and will come back to try to get the rest of her soul that he thinks that he is due. And she carries around a pair of like iron scissors around her neck because like that is what's supposed to be able to fight off this Fae. And the potential threat there is looming this entire time. It keeps getting brought up. It is why she doesn't plan on getting married. It's why, it's the why for a lot of things. It's why her and Vanessa, like not the whole reason, but like it is a reason why her and Vanessa are so close and like why Vanessa feels so protective over her. So then when this conflict comes around, I'm like, okay, finally, we're getting a little bit of conflict and I understand it's a cozy fantasy, so it's not supposed to be super high stakes. But when I tell you that she sets up like a high stake, this is supposed to be a bad evil dude doing bad evil things. And then the way that it is solved, I don't want to spoil anything, but it is like our main character who's like, oh no, how am I gonna get out of this? What if I give him this idea? That is the stupidest fucking thing. And then we're supposed to believe that this super evil fucked up dude, and I understand it's cozy fantasy, and he has elements of him that like are kind of supposed to be caricature. Like he's really obsessed with England and like English things, and that kind of plays a role into it. And what I think is supposed to provide kind of a humorous take, but it is just fucking ridiculous. And not in a good way. It made me laugh. And I couldn't tell if I was supposed to be laughing in that moment at that. I don't think that this is well written. I love the concept of it. I think it could have been done so well. And I don't understand why so many people love this. Katie Coulson's review was a light in the darkness for me when I was going to look up to see how people felt about this book. And like everyone who I'm friends with and follow was giving this such a high rating, like 4 or 5 stars, mainly 5 stars. And thank God, shout out to Katie Coulson's 2-star. Because I was like, okay, I'm not alone. Because I was starting to gaslight myself into thinking, maybe it's me. Am I the problem? I've been scrunching at my face so much that I'm already getting, my makeup is settling into my little scrunches. And so many people love this, so it must be doing something right. And I want to be able to say that I get it, because a lot of books that I don't like, I can understand why people do and why they are so well loved. I don't get this one at all. And I would say if you are looking for something like this that has the cozy fantasy vibes, but also has like a romance that's like, it's kind of revolving around, that has a main character who is autistic coded, but never explicitly said, which makes sense in like a historical fantasy context. Emily Wilde. Emily Wilde. Emily Wilde. 1,000 times over. Emily Wilde. The romance is incredible. The banter is incredible. The way the Fae are integrated, incredible. And in contrast to this, the only thing I really feel like I can say in positive light to this is that it was short, so at least it didn't like waste a ton of my time because it was a quick read and I had the audiobook. But I'm just so disappointed. But on a more positive note, I did start a book that I have been loving as I was like trying to finish this, and I needed a break. The reason that I finished this last night, I finished it literally at like 4 a.m. is because I was like, I have to get through this. I cannot spend another day on this. So I sat and listened to the audiobook and played Candy Crush in bed for the last like 2 hours of listening to this. But before that, I started Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson because I discovered that I think it's included in your Audible Plus membership. I don't think I bought this, and I'm able to listen to it. So don't quote me on that, but if I bought this book, I have literally no idea when I would have done that. This is a fantasy standalone, and this is gonna be the first standalone I've ever read by Brandon Sanderson. So I'm excited, but I've heard this is a better starting point than Elantris because Elantris was his debut, and I think more people tend to like this one a little bit more. And I figured while I'm still getting my feet wet with Brandon Sanderson, even though I've read like most of the Skyward series and Mistborn, as the first standalone, I figured this one was a good one to go with, especially because it follows 2 sisters and they're princesses, one and like kind of opposites from each other. Vivenna is the oldest and has always like understood her place, gone with the flow. She has known from a very young age that her place in this kingdom is that her dad, the king, signed a treaty with this other group of people to basically give away his oldest daughter to their god king to produce an heir whenever she is like 22 or something like that. And her whole life has been preparing for that and being trained in that. And she sorry, there's no good way for me to do this. It's not right in front of the camera. But she's accepted that role for herself and like wants to do this for her kingdom. Ciri, on the other hand, is the youngest, and there's another like middle sister in there. So she's set up from the very beginning as like kind of just there. Like she doesn't really have a set purpose in this family unit. So she's often off like breaking rules, leaving the palace when she's not supposed to, just kind of getting into general mischief. And then, plot twist, okay, her dad, the king, is like, okay, but here's the thing, is that like now that time is up and I have to send away Vivenna to, I don't know, be enslaved to this scary, intimidating god king of these other people. Otherwise they are going to start a war, and they're probably going to start a war anyway, but like maybe I can delay it because she has to have a baby first. But I kind of like really like her more than Ciri, and I kind of like, she's kind of a favorite, but like I'm not gonna say that. But like, yeah, I just love her too much to send her, but I don't love Ciri too much to send her, so you go instead. Because the way that I wrote this treaty technically says I'll send my daughter when the oldest one reaches 22. It doesn't technically say I will send the oldest daughter when she reaches 22. So off I send my 17-year-old daughter, who has not spent her life being in training, because I don't like her as much. Cool. And he tries to gaslight himself into believing that like that's not the reason, but like it is. We know it. Ciri knows it, Vivenna knows it, we all know it, okay? But the magic system in this world seems to be based off of, I knew it as like the tale of two sisters, one of them that is supposed to get married off, it ends up being the other one. And then I think I had heard that like the one that was supposed to be married off ends up going to try to like save her, and the magic system is based off of colors, which is part of it. It's based off of harnessing the power of colors, but also the power of breath with a capital B in this world, which is like magic breath. I could be wrong about this because I'm just dipping my toes in, but from what it seems like so far is that everyone is like born with breath or a breath, possibly more, but I think one. And then in order to get breath from other people, which gives you more power, that then you can use the power of colors to awaken inanimate objects and basically kind of bring them to life with your breaths. You have to gain your breath from other people, but you can only get it through them willingly giving it to you, or like saying this. I think they can give it under distress, but like they have to give it to you. Say the magic words. And the more breaths that you have, the higher that you rank up in this magic system and the more power that you have. The first bite I took of my noodles today, I bit the inside of my lip, and it's in the worst spot because now that it's like swollen a little bit, I keep accidentally biting it over and over again. This is a longer book. I mean, short in Brandon Sanderson terms. I think it's like 600 and some pages, but I'm like, even though I'm just dipping my toes into everything and like getting my footing, I am loving it so hard, which I kind of like knew I would. But I think now is a good time for me to read it because I needed hope and I needed a book that keeps me wanting to come back for more and keeps me engaged. Because a lot of the books that I've been reading recently, I'm just reading because I love reading, not because I love reading those books. And those are two very different things, and I need some time spent reading because I am loving the book, not feeling like I'm reading just because it is my preferred activity and therefore better than any alternative, but not great in terms of the book. I haven't taken my medicine today. This explains, I'm like, why is it so hard for me to be putting together my thoughts when I had even like written down some of like my feelings? So even trying to follow like my bulleted list, I'm like, I feel like I'm rambling. Why can I not put my thoughts into coherent ideas? That's why I'm gonna go take my medicine and then keep reading, and then I will return. Good morning, it's my birthday today. I'm so excited. I meant to like chat with you while I got ready, and then I completely forgot. And it's my birthday, so I'm not gonna feel bad about it. My plans for the day, I have breakfast at 10:30, and then I'm thinking maybe going to Barnes & Noble. I have a pedicure with my partner, then we're gonna go to yoga, and then I think just get like takeout with both my partners and hang out tonight. So until breakfast, because right now it is 9 a.m., so probably for like the next hour, I already got all ready. I think I'm just gonna sit down and keep reading. I am in the middle of Warbreaker. I think I'm at like the 60% mark. Normally I'm reading like multiple books at a time, but I haven't figured out what other book that I want to start. So I think I'm gonna carry on with that one. I'm really liking it. I'm not loving it as much as like I loved Mistborn, but again, that's a high, this is a standalone fantasy. That is a very high bar to be setting things. And I think the majority of the reason is I just don't feel like I've gotten the chance to connect with a lot of the characters the way that I want to. But I often find that that's a part of like why oftentimes in series, for fantasy series, the first book will get a 4-star, like if it's gonna end up being a fantasy series that I love. And then the subsequent books will get 5 stars because I've had more time to fall in love with the characters and see their journey. So maybe it's just because this technically is a standalone, but like I know that he planned it as potentially eventually writing a sequel for it, but like you can read this and it stands alone on its own and it is considered a standalone. So maybe we would just get like more of that growth in any future sequels that could possibly come. Not that the characters aren't growing, I just don't feel as connected to them as I did with Mistborn. But that doesn't mean that I'm not loving it. I am loving it. Hey, I need that shirt. Please don't play with it. Willow loves strings. Okay, so I'm gonna read and then I'll update you when I update you. I forgot to mention 2 things that I do have to give it to Brandon about. One is I've literally laughed out loud multiple times to this. And I do think that Lightsong is growing on me. And I know that Ciri and Venna have the potential to grow on me. And I think that a lot of that is gonna come in this next, like this last part. The romance that, listen, I just like don't care for how Brandon Sanderson does romance, which is fine because it's like normally not a huge part of the plot. It's just kind of there for me and it doesn't like take away from anything, but it definitely doesn't add to the story. And I get why he includes it because I'm sure with like publishing and marketing, people want a romance, they want the love to root for. I just don't think it's like that necessary and I don't think it's a strong suit, at least from the books that I've read so far. The other thing is that Brandon, you pulled off quite the twist that I did not see coming, despite the fact that the annotations, even I didn't read any of the spoiler sections because it lets you know like when he starts to get into spoilers, but there is a part that's not covered by the spoiler section that he said something that alludes to this twist. And I remember questioning it. I mean, like, wait, what? Like that doesn't go with what I thought about what was happening here. I was so convinced in what was happening that I made up a different excuse for why he said that in my head. Like I was like, oh, okay, it must be this thing. And I want to be super vague because I think it was just so well done. And I can't imagine many people seeing this coming unless like you had already heard about it or something. But it was good. I gasped last night when I was reading it. I was like, what? I immediately went back and reread it because I was like, okay, no, I have to be misunderstanding what's happening here. And no, I was not. So that was pretty impressive. And the more I think about those 2 things, the more I'm remembering that I am really, really enjoying this and really loving it. It's just that the characters aren't hitting as hard for me as they did in Mistborn, and that's okay because honestly, if I think back to the first ever time that I read the first Mistborn book, I gave it 4 stars. And I remember saying, I think upon a reread or even upon reading the second book, this could in hindsight turn into a 5-star for me. But just as that book is a standalone, which also can be read as a standalone, I didn't love it the way that I remember loving it because I love the entire series so much that has like twisted my initial thoughts and feelings on the first book. I'm talking about this as if it doesn't have the potential to be a 5-star, but like it totally does. It's just that my 5 stars for Brandon Sanderson, like it or not, whether this is fair or not, you could debate, probably not, but in my head, they're just different than a 5-star for any other book, you know? And now that I'm saying that, I think I said the same thing about Alloy of Law when I read that. And I accept that. I accept that it is probably a fault in my rating system and I'm okay with it. Oh my God, everyone, reminder to take your medicine. Medicine time so we can function and not be pregnant. 2 things I'm big fans of personally. It was so sweet. My best friend this morning had this, like I have been obsessed with Sonic's dirty ocean water and the last couple of times they've messed it up. And my best friend for my birthday, even though she lives in Canada, she had it delivered on DoorDash to me and it was just so sweet. We also have to figure out what I'm gonna wear today. The weather is, blah. It's fine though. Okay, ignoring my overflowing pile of laundry back there, I think this is what I'm gonna wear, except I have a black jacket in the car and I think I'm gonna put that on instead. But just so we can get the idea of what this looks like. It's comfy, it'll work well with my pedicure because these are easy to roll up. And if it gets too hot, like when I'm shopping around Barnes & Noble, I can take this off. Yeah, because here's what it looks like without that. So it's like what 99% of my outfits look like. I got Wordle in 2. Wordle in 2. I wish I would have recorded this. I did rotate my device. Show the proof, please. Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me, do we see that? Wow, incredible. I was just telling my mom, we update each other on our Wordle every day. And I was so jealous already because she said she got it in a 3 and I was like, oh no, there's no way. There's no way. Happy birthday to me. Now is supposed to be the time that I come clean to you and let you know that I really didn't film anything on my birthday. And I knew that this was gonna happen. This is why I didn't make any promises to film anything, even though this is a birthday vlog. Here's what happens. If I'm alone, I remember to take B-roll or like film the things I'm doing or film I'm out and about. When I'm with other people, it's not like I think about it and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to. I literally don't think about it. So like we went to breakfast and I was like, oh yeah, I'll film just like a little cute little clip of my breakfast. Give you something. I forgot. So then on my way from breakfast to Starbucks, I was like, oh, okay, I can film my Starbucks. I forgot. And I was like, well, at least definitely remember to film in Barnes & Noble, because nearly every time I'm in Barnes & Noble, I get some B-roll. Did I remember to film? No, of course not. So I don't know how to break that habit from my brain to remember to film when I'm also socializing. I can't apparently remember to do those things at the same time. I've been talking about for years, I live in like right next to Tornado Alley, very close to / what is sometimes considered to be Tornado Alley. And I remember growing up, us having at least like tornado warnings at least once a year, if not multiple times a year at school. Like I would remember having to duck and cover every year of school. And since I moved back here in 2021, we haven't had a single tornado warning. And I've been talking about for years how that's weird and like how that kind of makes me nervous because it feels like the calm before the storm. And then on my birthday, we had a tornado warning. It was so weird to experience that again because I'd been in Michigan for so long where like tornadoes don't really happen. We had like one warning and it was like what we probably would have considered to be a tornado watch here the entire time that I lived there in like 8 years. And so it was weird because we were getting a pedicure and looking out the like huge windows at like the sky turning green. But then of course the day before and after my birthday, it was like so nice outside. It was like sunny and 75. Like I said, we went to Barnes & Noble and Olive Garden and then did Thai takeout. And then the day after my birthday on Friday, went over to my mom's house for like our family dinner with me and my partners. And we all, with my little brother, we played Just Dance and Mario Kart because I got a Nintendo Switch for my birthday, which was so exciting, mainly because I wanted to play Just Dance. And I forgot how much I used to, all growing up throughout high school, I danced competitively. That's what I did. And then I had a few injuries and I stopped dancing. And then, you know, like being an adult, it's just like harder if you're not in it professionally or like in it in college. And now it's like focusing on my hair. Can we like track me? Thank you. But I remember how I used to rope my family into playing Just Dance on weekends for like hours. And I would like not get worn. I would love it. And I just felt that again. Like I was like, oh my God, I could literally play this all night long. This is so much fun. But I did finish Mistborn, but I did finish reading Warbreaker. I think I'm gonna end up giving it 4 stars. I still loved it. It was great. It just wasn't absolutely blow your mind amazing. And it didn't have that like 5-star feel. I honestly think I might have just taken a little bit too long to read this. It took me like a week and a half, which I mean, it's like a 700-page book. Plus, I read all of the annotations and he annotated like multiple pages for every chapter and there were like 60 some chapters. So that's another probably like 150, 200 pages. And I can't tell if I'm glad I read the annotations because overall it was an enjoyable experience. Like I am so glad I read the annotations. I went back and reread like I skipped the spoiler parts of the annotations and then when I was done, I went back and reread all of those. And I feel like I learned so much about Brandon Sanderson's writing and his process and just like the writing of fantasy in general. And I always just wondered how people pieced it together and him talking about the editing process and what he took out and where he thought of the different parts of this magic system or his characters or even like the little things about like the twists or the plot devices that he used, how like sometimes those would come from previous books he tried to write but like it didn't quite work in that book and then it like found its way into here and it did work inside of this. And I loved that. But I do think in some ways the annotations impacted my overall enjoyment of this reading, like this book specifically, just because it did spoil things a little bit. Not a ton. Like there was that example where I said he basically told me and I still didn't pick up on it, but there were some things, the way he wrote it, I was like, oh, I think this is what's gonna happen. And I think had I not known that, or if I had read this quicker, since I wouldn't have been reading the annotations after I did like after every 2 or 3 chapters, I think it would have just been that 5-star experience for me, but it wasn't quite, but I'm okay with that. I still really loved it. And I do think if you are intimidated by the idea of getting into Brandon Sanderson with Mistborn, because I do think The Final Empire is a little bit longer than this book, and technically you can read it as a standalone, although I just think it is so much better as part of the trilogy. But if you're not wanting that, if the idea of even starting another series intimidates you, but you want to either get into adult fantasy or get into Brandon Sanderson, I understand why people say that like Warbreaker is a really good place to start because it is big in scope, but so accessible. I just think the pacing was a little bit off for me. There were times in the middle where I was like, okay, Brandon, we could have cut this down a little bit, let's be honest. But then I would read the annotations and I would understand why he was like putting things, so then it like made sense. But also as a reading experience as a whole, some things could have been cut. Could have been a little bit shorter. I'm a little bit behind, but it's fine. So I think to make up for it, what I'm gonna do, since this is gonna be posted way after my birthday anyway, because I still have 2 videos going up before this, which should obviously already be live by the time you're watching this, what I'm gonna do to make up for it is that this weekend we're going to the Vintage Expo in Rogers, Arkansas, and I think we're gonna go to the museum. We're staying down there. We got an Airbnb with a hot tub. I am going to film some things for you. So we'll include that here, and I'll keep you updated and I'll tell you about the next book that I'm reading. Okay, wow, I have so much to update you on, and I've only been back for a couple of days. Let's start with first things first, so you know what to expect. I remember to film, we went to the Vintage Expo and did a couple of other things throughout the weekend. We went to Crystal Bridges and saw one of their like featured exhibits. I'd never been there before. At the Vintage Expo, I did pick up this like surprise date with a book. So here's the thing, is that I normally don't pick things up like this because I always feel like chances are I either have the book, I've heard of it, and like there's a reason I don't already have it or I haven't read it, or it's something that like I could find at my thrift store for like $3, and I believe I paid, I think it says on here, yeah, I paid $12 for this. But I thought, oh my god, I'm literally in the middle of filming this vlog, and how perfect would it be if I picked this up and then we read it together, if it's something I haven't already read, which I'm pretty sure it's not, but we'll get to that, okay? Expect this next after I give you some updates. So we went to the Vintage Expo. It was a lot of fun. It was hot in there. If I was one of those vendors who bought a booth, I'd be pissed at how hot it was in there because it made me want to leave. And I imagine that it also made people want to leave early, so we didn't stick around nearly as long as I thought that we were going to. We were really only there for like less than 2 hours before all of us got hot, and then we wanted to go eat and we went to P.F. Chang's for lunch. But I got a few things there. My partner got me this pair of like super cute earrings that I have some that are similar. It's like the shape of someone's body, like the outline of it, but this one they filled in with resin and put like a cute little flower. And then I got me and one of my partners matching little like swirly rings, which was adorable. And then we all got lunch, went back to the Airbnb, sat in the hot tub for a little bit, got ready to go to dinner, went to a yummy Italian restaurant. That was so much fun. Went back to the Airbnb, sat in the hot tub for even longer. On Sunday, that's when we went to Crystal Bridges. We also went and got brunch at Mirabella's Table, which normally is like an Italian restaurant for lunch and dinner, but on the weekends it seems like they do like a brunch buffet kind of thing. But it's not a buffet because they bring you most everything they bring to your table, but it's like an all-you-can-eat kind of vibe. You just pay a flat fee and then they have like a big menu that you can choose from. You can just order like whatever you want off of it. It was a big hit. Everyone who we went with was a fan, which was great because then there was a lot of different things for everyone. But then we went to Crystal Bridges and saw their exhibit that was just like absolutely stunning. It was all of this art made out of like butterflies and moths and beetles and snakes that are all collected like very ethically. Like it's just that whenever places that house these animals, whenever they die, they can choose to either just like dispose of the bodies or donate them to like these different projects. So this artist will take them and then just make them into these gorgeous pieces of art. But after that started like Sleepy Alexa, because I got so tired that I was like, you all go ahead to the rest of this museum. I'm just gonna sit and chill and read my Kindle. I just like needed some downtime and some quiet time. It was also just like a lot of socializing, which I love. Like everyone who we went with, I went with my partners, and then also like one of my partner's best friends and her partner, and they're incredible. Everyone was amazing. I loved socializing with everyone. Excuse me, that's my foot that you're licking right now and biting. Let go. But I'm just an introvert and I just need a little bit of downtime. So I did that. I read a little bit of my Kindle, reset, which was great. I needed it. Then we came back up and had dinner and just chilled out. And then my plan was to like update you yesterday, start this book, maybe even finish it because it's YA and it seems pretty thin. I literally don't know what it is. We'll figure it out. Yesterday was really hard because we had a close call with my family dog that we thought that we were gonna have to say goodbye to her. She's doing a lot better today. Honestly, like she has been kicking it. She 4 years ago was given the prognosis that she probably wouldn't live more than a month, and she's still been going strong. So shout out to Charlie. She's incredible. She's been like the best dog for my little brother that we ever could have asked for. And hopefully she'll continue to keep kicking it for a long time and she'll feel a lot better. And today she is. So hopefully we just keep going down that road. But it was one of those situations where like we were all spending the day kind of preparing, which thankfully that's not what happened. But that obviously was very emotionally draining. So I ended up sleeping like 12 hours last night, came home, made lunch, did a little bit of work, and then I was like, okay, I just need more time to like I can't concentrate on anything. I'll just like watch YouTube and read a little bit and chill out before going to yoga because I had yoga at 7, and then I fell asleep again. I took another nap after sleeping for 12 hours, and then at yoga, I just got back from yoga. I felt like I could fall asleep again. There was a couple of times I'm someone who I have to be in ideal conditions to fall asleep. I wish that this wasn't the case. I can't fall asleep in the car. I can't fall asleep like at a yoga class, on a yoga mat. I have a hard time sleeping on the couch. I have a hard time sleeping if I don't have my like exact pillow system that I have set up in my bed, okay? So the fact that I was about to fall asleep during yoga says a lot. I feel like I should turn on this light above me, but sometimes that's what messes with the settings on my camera and does the like weird flickery thing. Okay, excuse me. But anyway, point is I literally have no idea if I'm about to fall back asleep or if I'm gonna be up for like ever tonight because I've completely now fucked my sleep schedule. And I'm sure it's a mix of just having a lot going on and also, who knows, I think maybe it could possibly be the weather. We had really warm weather and then now it's been like really, really dreary and cold. And I know that that's been messing with my body. Like my body has felt so stiff. There was also a lunar eclipse and a full moon. So who knows? Let's move on to more exciting things. Here is our blind date with a book that I picked up at the Vintage Expo. It's a YA fantasy, it's queer. Here is what sold me. It says, gently used young adult paranormal horror, check. Especially queer young adult horror tends to really work. Main character can see and talk to ghosts. Here's the thing. The only thing I think it could be that I have and that gave me pause is that sounding like it could be White Smoke. I feel like maybe this is like a see and talk to ghost paranormal YA horror, which I have tried to read before and then I DNF'd it because it just wasn't working for me at the time, but it could work. It could be She Is a Haunting, but I don't think so because that's like such a new release and it looked like they had 2 copies of the same book. It says gripping, timely, and utterly unapologetic. It's a chilling horror that haunts with a searing social commentary from an exciting new talent. Okay, so maybe it's not Tiffany D. Jackson. It's a debut. I wonder if this is a hint on the back. I just saw this. I didn't notice that at first. But it also says it addresses race, class, and sexuality in America. Are we ready to open it? I've been holding on to this for so long, not opening it, that I feel like there's a lot of pressure to be opening it now because I wanted to open it so badly when I was there. But like, I obviously wanted to open it on camera with you. So I've been waiting patiently. I should have gotten like an opener. I was gonna say to myself, because I would like love to keep this as a memento. I'm not gonna. Let's just make sure we've got one good. Okay, I've definitely seen this cover, The Taking of Jake Livingston, and I feel like I know this author, Ryan Douglas, but I don't see anything from them on my shelves. Because now that I'm thinking about it, obviously like this could have been a debut, this author's debut, but they could have obviously come out with things since this one. This doesn't necessarily have to be a new book. It probably isn't. I literally don't know anything about this. The cover is so shiny, but hopefully you can see. Living in 2 worlds is exhausting, and no one knows this better than 16-year-old Jake Livingston. His working class, diverse neighborhood is a far cry from the world of St. Clair Prep, where he is one of the only Black students constantly at the mercy of racist teachers and peers who don't understand him. But when his neighbor, a survivor of a grisly school shooting, is murdered, and the bloody initials of the now dead shooter, Sawyer Dune, are left on the entryway. Sorry, I'm pausing to say that yes, JL would have been a clue because that's what they wrote on the back of this, which would have signaled to them that this is Jake Livingston. Makes sense. Back to this. The bloody initials of the now dead shooter are left at the entryway wall of Jake's home. Jake is forced to confront another world he wishes he could escape, the world of the dead. As a medium, Jake sees ghosts around him all the time. Most are harmless, stuck in their death loops as they relive their deaths over and over. They rarely interact with people. And while for most of his life, Jake has avoided them, this time there's no running away. Sawyer was a troubled teen who shot and killed 6 kids at his local high school before taking his own life. Now he's a powerful, vengeful ghost and he has plans for his afterlife. Plans that include Jake. When Sawyer begins stalking him, okay, I don't want to read anymore. I feel like that's gonna give too much away. I'm excited about this. So I'm gonna get started reading this, figure out what other books that I had told you I had started reading for this vlog, and I'll keep you updated. So I just sat down in the bath and read the first like 100 pages of this, which is saying a lot because I love taking baths. I take a bath like almost every day if I can, but I don't tend to spend a lot of time in the bath. Usually 20 minutes is like my max, and then I'm just like naturally kind of done and I'm getting out. This was like pretty compulsively readable, which I will say, although it is feeling like it's gonna be like a 3-star if I'm being honest here. But we're alternating back and forth between two different points of view. One is Jake, our main character here, who present day is going to school at St. Clair Prep. He's the only black kid at school, but mainly the focus when we're in Jake's perspective is on him seeing ghosts. He sees ghosts everywhere all of the time. Like, there's a lot of people who have died around him, and I'm not quite sure the laws in this world around, I mean, it's set in our world, but like in this version of our reality, I'm not quite fully grasping the laws around like when he can see ghosts and when he can't, because it seemed like at first that the ghosts that he saw mainly were kind of just stuck in a loop of like how they died, and usually it was because like if they died unexpectedly, they kind of got stuck in this in-between and then he could see them, but it was usually like connected to where he was at. But he's seeing a lot of students who have died in a lot of different ways, and I'm like, I don't think that many people have died at the school I go to. I think that like people would talk about that for a long time, and there just seems to be a plethora of deaths that have happened at his house, at his school. But then there was like this instance where he was seeing it at his house, but it like wasn't that those people died there. It was that like there was a party, his brother was hosting a party, and then like they were attracted to that vibe, so then that's why they showed up. So whatever, I'm suspending disbelief, okay? But I will say that was a little bit confusing. The reason that it matters that there are rules to when and where and how ghosts appear to Jake is because Sawyer, who is our other perspective, seems to be a ghost that is breaking those rules because he's not stuck in a time loop, and we are getting little sprinklings of his POV from a few years ago. And we know that he went on to commit a school shooting. We also, in Jake's point of view right now, know that his neighbor, who is one of the survivors of that school shooting, has recently been murdered. And then right after that, the initials, SAD, the initials of Sawyer, end up written in blood on Jake, like at Jake's house, on the wall in Jake's house. And now it seems like Sawyer is kind of like breaking these rules. He's not in a loop. He seems to have more independence and like autonomy and awareness than other ghosts. And the ghosts aren't supposed to be able to touch you, but like it seems like Sawyer killed Mateo. Sawyer in his ghostly form, and that he has come back for some vengeance. And specifically whatever plan Sawyer has in his afterlife, he needs Jake to do it. But other than that, we're just getting like some high school drama. Jake really struggles to fit in, mainly because he's like seeing and hearing ghosts all the time, so it's really hard for him to concentrate when like ghosts are screaming in your ear constantly and you're like not sure what's real and what's not, and you're like having to ask your mom and your brother. And his brother is like kind of just thinks that he's using the ghost thing for attention, and they're not very close. And Jake has one friend, but like they're not really close, but then maybe there's this girl Fiona and like maybe they're gonna be friends. This is heavily queer, which I really appreciate and I love in my horror books, especially my YA horror, really any horror. I love queer themes. But to be perfectly honest with you, it's just, it is what it is. When I read that synopsis to you, that's like exactly what we're getting so far. I will say, I tried to listen to the audiobook. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh my god, it's so bad. It's so bad. The way, I don't understand. The narrator himself, fine. Anytime the narrator tries to create another voice for another character, no, absolutely not. And I let it slide for the first one. For like the first scene that we get another person in with Jake is his friend, and his friend's voice is described as noisy and loud and nasally. So I was like, okay, fine. If that's the case, you're doing that very well. But then it was like every other person's voice was like nasally and loud and annoying. I would not recommend the audiobook experience. I wanted this to be so much better than it was. It just seemed to have some execution issues. There were times that something like a lot action things happened in this book. So much so that it was giving me like superhero-y vibes there for a second, just in the way that like the action scenes were being written, which just isn't like really for me, but I'm not the target audience for this, so. They were also confusing. Like I would have to go back through and reread and question if I missed something, which I didn't, because I would be like, how did we just get here? And there was a lot about like the way that this magic supernatural stuff worked that wasn't really explained and kind of contradicted itself, and I still don't fully understand now that we're done with it. And at the same time, like our two main perspectives are Jake and then Sawyer. But really Sawyer we're mainly getting through the perspective of his journal entries that he was like writing before everything went down. I feel like we knew more about Sawyer and his backstory than we did about Jake. And then when we would get information about Jake and like especially like some traumatic things that have happened to him that explain where he's at and his family dynamics, it's just like thrown in there at the weirdest times that don't make any sense, and then left me confused as to like why he was the way he was with his family members, but not in a way that was like satisfying, just in a way that was confusing. I felt like there was so much going on and this was such a short book that we didn't really get to flesh out a lot of what went on here. I think that like nuanced conversations are important about what leads to mass shootings and school shootings, and I think that it's really interesting to have the perspective of the shooter. I just don't know if this had enough time to deal with that in the way that I wish that it could have and I had wanted it to. Not that I wouldn't recommend this, I still for its target audience would recommend it, and I'm so glad that like we're getting more queer Black boys in horror and getting those stories, and the romance that was in here was cute, but like again I think it suffered from like some of the pacing issues and feeling like a little surface level, and feeling like all like at one point Jake literally like a page before that, or like the beginning of the chapter right before this was like, oh, my date with Alistair went so well, and then I was reading and it was like Alistair called it a date to someone, and then he was like, what, a date? What? Did you just call it a date? Like he was so shocked, and I was like, bro, you just called it a date. You called it a date. So interesting, but that was cute. There was like a friendship plot in here that I wanted more out of. Fiona gets brought up and then she's like gone for half the book, and then it's like pops back in for a scene and then is like gone again. And that's just very reminiscent of how a lot of things happen in this. And I think it's because, listen, you won't hear me saying this very often, I think this needed to be longer. It was less than 300 pages and it was super quick. The audiobook again was like 7.5 hours long. And I think to deal with everything that this book tried to tackle, it needed to be longer. And it needed to be better edited, and I just felt like it was a little under edited, but also underwritten, which usually it's not the case. Usually it's like under edited and overwritten. Maybe some things had gotten edited out that shouldn't have, I don't know. But it just left me feeling, I'm glad that this exists, but I wanted more out of it. And I felt like it could have been a lot more. I don't even know if I can give it, like, I don't know if I'm gonna give this 3 stars. I feel like it's like a 2.5 for me. By the end of it, I was listening to the audiobook even though I didn't like the audiobook narrator, because I just wanted to get done with it. And I didn't want to DNF it, and it felt very much like if this wasn't the book that I picked up in the surprise book thing that was like the fun part of this vlog, I probably would have DNF'd it, to be honest. But I would read from this author again if they wrote any other novels. I think that a lot of my issues with this could be attributed to it being a debut and could get resolved in like another book, because I like the things that he was exploring and I like paranormal aspects to this if they had made a little bit more sense and were a little bit more fleshed out. I liked where he was going with a lot of things. I just felt like the execution left a lot to be desired. But I did read it in less than 24 hours, so it was a quick read. Okay, so apparently that was a very abrupt end to this vlog. So here, Future Lexa is to wrap everything up. And by wrap everything up, I really mean just like saying bye and thank you. If you made it all the way to the end of this vlog, shout out to you. That's impressive. Leave a little birthday cake or candle or something birthday, a present emoji down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!